Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my first World of Tanks video in quite some time here on the Gitbag the Great channel. Now I know I haven't done one of these in quite a while, but I had a couple of really good matches in some of my heavy tanks recently on World of Tanks that I just kind of wanted to share with you guys. First up, we've got me in my Tier 8 KV-5 Soviet heavy tank. Now, this is a premium tank that you can only buy on certain occasions when Wargaming decide to put it in the gift shop for a limited period of time. It's not something you can buy standard with gold or real world money on the gift store. You kind of do have to just wait for when Wargaming release it. And it's a very unique tank because it is very heavily armoured, and some of the armour on it is very well designed. But at the same time, as you can see on the top there, and when I get a good front view of the tank, or when the camera pans around to get a good front view of the tank, you can see it's got two little R2-D2 turrets on the front that are very big weak spots, so you do have to keep that in mind when you're driving this thing. Yes, it's very well armoured, and yes, it's very tough, and it's excellent for ramming, because its speed in a direct line going down low gradient ground is very quick. But at the same time, you do have to keep in mind that if you go up against something that has a higher velocity gun than yours and, you know, has a high penetration value, like, say, the Emerald Mark 1 or the Ramatar Borsig, they can easily punch through your little R2-D2 turrets on the front of your KV-5, and that is something I feel that not only myself, but some KV-5 drivers in the past have perhaps gotten a little bit overconfident with or forgotten about, in the sense that we drive it around and see it as being a giant armoured monster of a machine, which it is, but at the same time it's fallible and it's got its own weaknesses that you do have to take account of and really have to take note of once the 105mm armour piercing shells come in and start punching through your front plate. Now, I sent this replay in recently to Sophie Gaming and Rita Gamer, two very talented female World of Tanks live streamers. You know, definitely much better World of Tanks players than me, and I thought, why don't I just make my own video of it and include it in a video either on its own or as part of a bigger video of replays, and so here we are. Now, this isn't the absolute best KV-5 game I've ever played, and I have had this tank for a few years now, but it is definitely one of the best ones I've had in the last few months at least, and you'll see soon in regards to how much damage I do. Now, the Borsig is quite a dangerous little medium tank that's been added into the game recently, and it has got a very high velocity gun, but if you just sit in front of a KV-5 and just lump shells at it, you're never going to punch through its armour. And that thing is definitely more than capable of killing the KV-5, you just have to aim for its right-sided R2-D2 turret. And whether or not that guy carried a repair kit or not, I don't know, because I just kept pumping shots into his front drive wheel, keeping him tracked, and because this thing has only a tier 7 105mm gun that you find on the T150 at tier 6, it does actually fire relatively quickly through such a high tier tank, so I didn't really have much trouble taking care of him. Now, originally I was going to just stick on that corner, but then I started getting hit in the side by the Super Hellcat, so I decided to move forwards and put the kibosh in on the engine on this IS-2-2. Now, he's got two very big guns on his turret, and so I try to limit my contact time with him, and as he pulled back around that corner I decided to fire at the 45 TP, and the next time I get a shot at him I try to make sure I go for his front drive wheel. Now, I'm not entirely sure what that P-43 Terminator was doing, but even though he was one of the least likely tanks to do damage to me in this engagement, I thought I'd take him out anyway, because one less gun firing at me is all the better. And then I'm not entirely sure what this Challenger was doing either, because the Challenger is quick, don't get me wrong, but it's not quick enough to outrun the rate of fire of a KV-5 in close quarter combat. Now, whether or not that IS-1 got bored of just sniping at me from a distance and bouncing off my side plating, I don't know. But I can't really sort of have a go at him too much, because the IS-1 is more of a close-range brawler tank, even when it's not necessarily top tier. But then again, I don't know, he didn't really get close enough to have enough of a graft out of his tank's close-range combat capabilities. And originally, right, at this point I was going to stick there sniping away at him, but then I saw this MO1 on my flank and I thought, right, I can't leave him there. I'm going to take him on and try and keep him tracked there until those heavy tanks, including that KV-3, come around that corner behind him and can help me by putting some fire into the back of him. Keep him tracked, and that's a few extra 100 damage I'm able to do, as well as getting a little bit of spotting damage, or assistance damage as it is known now. And then I can enable myself to turn round and put the kibosh in on that IS-1. And I would have continued doing that, but then I obviously noticed the 703-2 firing at me from behind, so I decided, right, kill the IS-1 quickly, because, again, the less guns firing at you, the better. And then I try and pull back around this little corner, so the T-28 prototype and the Super Hellcat on the hills there can't keep putting in sniper fire on me. And now at this point, I've had a pretty spectacular game. I've blocked over 6,000 damage, I've done over 4,300 damage of my own, and at this point I was getting a little bit overconfident, if I'm going to be honest, even though obviously I'm on very low health by this point. And I start taking snapshots like that, and the thing is, even though the gun on the KV-5 is relatively-ish accurate, it's not so accurate that you can use it as a sniper all the time. And the element of Stalin reaching up from the depths of hell to guide your shell to the enemy target might work a bit more with the KV-2, but less so with the KV-5. So you do have to lead your shots a little bit more with this thing, even though its gun isn't as punchy. Now, this could have gone really wrong for me here, and I went around this corner to engage the 703-2 to, get away from the T-28 prototype, and I kind of make a mistake here because I end up getting into a protracted gunfight with a tank that has a much deadlier gun with me, and obviously, as you can see there, it doesn't work out so well for me. And I suppose by this point in the match I had done so much damage and contributed so much to the inevitable victory of my team that I kind of thought in a sense that I was invincible. So yeah, that's not really my finest end to a match ever, but at the same time, again, over 6,500 damage blocked, over 1,200 assistance damage, and over 4,300 damage done myself. I'd take that. Really, the only blot on this match was the fact that I did die, and that is annoying, but at the same time, it's like, well, I mean, can I really complain about it after a match like that? When I've done over 4,300 damage, and just from one match, I get a KD ratio of 4.1. So, yeah, I'm not going to really complain about it too much, even though the ending to my own personal contribution to this match was a little bit disappointing, and I got a bit greedy and got into a protracted gun battle with a tank that, let's be honest, is a lot more tactically flexible and has a much better gun than me. So yeah, that was really kind of my own fault. But thankfully, there's enough of my allies left, and this guy is on low enough health that they didn't really have any problem mopping him up. And now for the second course of today's fine meal here at the dining table of yours truly, Gitbag the Great. Before, we had the KV-5 Tier 8 Soviet Premium Heavy Tank on Ghost Town. Now we have the standard Tier 6 Japanese Heavy Tank, the OI, on Ensk. Now, I'm thinking that, considering I'm getting back into World of Tanks again and making World of Tanks videos, I'm probably going to do, different series. So, the series that just contains replays with me in it, that's going to be called something like The Misadventures of Gitbag on World of Tanks, or something like that. Something along those lines, anyway. And I'm thinking that replays sent in by you guys watching will probably be called something like Best of the Best and Worst of the Worst of World of Tanks. Or, just something that's sort of simple and a bit sort of comical and silly, because then again, while we do want to improve our skills in competitive online battle arena game like this, I feel like many of us just want to have fun. So I feel like that seems like an appropriate enough name. Now, the OI, again, is kind of like the KV-5 at Tier 8, in the sense that it's very heavily armoured. A lot of the armour is well designed, but it's got two R2-D2 turrets on the front. The OI also has the problem of the fact that the armour on its turret is very, very flat, so you can easily punch through the armour on the turret even with like a 76mm gun. But the thing is, the top gun on this thing is a 105cm high velocity cannon, or sorry, low velocity gun that fires derp shells, not unlike the KV-2, but the thing is, I feel like the armour piercing ammo on this thing has a slightly better value. As you can see down here, it does an average damage of 700 with an average penetration of 121, so it's pretty good, and high explosive isn't terrible either. 890 average damage with an average penetration of 75. And it gets premium ammo of heat as well. So if you're going up against something with flat armour, like say a Tiger or a KV-1 or a KV-2, or if you're being really greedy with your heat shells, a TOG, you could just easily punch through those things and do tons of damage in one go with the heat shells. But considering this is a tier 6 and 5 game, I'm just mainly going with the armour piercing shells, because enough of the tanks that I'm facing in this match have thin and light enough armour that I can easily just punch through their armour and just do hundreds and hundreds of points of damage very easily. I mean, as you saw at the beginning of this match, I easily killed that T-34-76 with one shot when he was on full health, and I just did over 600 damage to the M6 heavy tank. Now, unlike the KV-2, this thing doesn't get the deadened hand of Stalin coming up from hell to guide the shells from its barrel to the target. So, again, you do have to lead your shots just a little bit with this thing, and be a little bit careful with where you aim it, because the reloading time is quite long. So if you get stuck in a duel of sorts with a tank that has a faster firing gun than you, and you've just wasted a shot, you can end up screwing yourself over quite a bit. Now, I realise at this point that I'm either going to have to concentrate on the KV-1S or the Sherman Jumbo, because one of those two is easily capable of killing me. KV-1S can hit me with high explosive and keep me trapped, or the Jumbo can just punch through my frontal armour, because he's got a high enough velocity gun where it's pretty easy for him to do that. So I decided to go for the KV-1S because he's slightly nearer to me, and then I do sort of have a moment of thinking, right, can I go for the SU-8 because he keeps stunning me, but then I decide that I'm going to go for the Stug 3G and the 60G FT, because they're on my flank and they're pinning down my allies. And I'm not going to lie, I think that's the first time in about a couple of years that an OI's armour-piercing shot has bounced off of a tier 5 tank destroyer, or at least that's the first time in a couple of years I've seen that happen anyway. So I decided to take my time, try and aim this time, and take my shot a bit more carefully, and thankfully, for once, I'm actually happy that it doesn't go directly onto my reticle, because if it had gone straight where I was aiming that shot, it would have gone onto the Stug 3G's gun mantlet and possibly bounced, but it actually went just slightly to the right and hit him just in the viewport where the armor was much thinner and flatter. And then I decided to take out the SU-8, and I did have to sort of like pray to the dark gods that my shot would hit there for a bit, because that target of his gun mantlet was pretty thin and small. Now, this is where we have a bit of a Harry moment. So, generally speaking, I've had a pretty great match up until this point. I've got 5 kills, I've done over 1,700 damage, but then I see that my team has lost pretty much the whole other side of the map, and for a moment we were temporarily outnumbered. And we are still, even though the scores have been pulled back to level pitching now, somewhat outmaneuvered. So we've got to deal with that, and we've also got to deal with more of the enemy tanks having more of their health left. So I decided, because the Hellcat and the Sherman Easy 8 are on a much higher health, I'm going to concentrate on them at the moment, and also because, well, they're very quick, dangerous tanks. go for the Hellcat first. He's got thin enough armour that it's pretty easy for my arm-piercing ammo, even if it hits his turret, to just punch through and deal full damage, as you can clearly see there. Now, this is the point where I thought I was going to die, because the Sherman Jumbo, sorry, it wasn't a EZ8, but the Sherman Jumbo and the T1 Heavy, for a moment looked like they were going to cooperate with each other and sort of outmaneuver me. But then thankfully, one of my allied tank destroyers on the left flank is able to keep that T1 Heavy pinned down, and then our Hellcat, or for a sec, I did think that was a Super Hellcat for a second, but our Hellcat then puts the kibosh on the enemy medium tank that was coming down the right flank to outflank us. And within a minute, or less than even half a minute, we've gone from being completely outmaneuvered and outgunned to swamping the enemy counterattack and leaving one poor little low health T1 Heavy on its own as the enemy's only hope. So it was kind of funny, because 30 seconds earlier we looked like we were going to lose, and now, yeah, not so much of a problem really. And that was a pretty dramatic match. 9 kills, over 3,000 damage. Probably my best ever match in the OI, I'm not going to lie. Now, I know the first 2 out of 3 replays of this episode of Misadventures on World of Tanks with Gitbag the Great were in some of the most enigmatic and impactful, big, strong, burly, heavy tanks. But to finish off today, I'm going to show you guys a very quick, snappy and fun little Panzer 1C replay that I played recently with my 2 mates, Flash Suppressor and K-pop lover Souks. So these little machines of absolute chaos are, on one hand, one of the most overpowered tier 3s, but they're also quite easy to kill, in considering they're very lightly armoured and very lightweight, so you could easily ram them and just completely capsize them completely and utterly, just like that. I mean, I was trying to get around that corner, but clearly me and Flash Suppressor were both a bit too much of a pair of eager beavers to, wait or brake turn. I mean, admittedly, I think my driving was slightly better there, but, let bygones be bygones. Now, the thing you have to note with this thing is that the top 2 guns are very powerful on it. You can get either a long-barreled 2cm autocannon or a 7.92mm high-velocity machine gun. Both are very powerful guns. I prefer the machine gun myself because it's better for skirmishing. And you can see an example of the rate of fire of it here. I mean, just look at us just put the absolute world of hurt on that poor old BT-7 artillery. The thing is, though, you do have to recognise that because it is an autoloader, each clip does take a little while to reload on this thing. I completely forgot, however, that the M3 Stuart is actually quite tough for a tier 3 light tank. So, yeah, I quickly realised that he was going to be a bit of a tough cookie to face up against. Now, his buddy in the T46 does put the kibosh in on Flash Suppressor, so his little adventure didn't last for too long, and we did, suffer a little bit without Flash Suppressor's fearsome 2cm autocannon. And then K-pop lover Souks dies soon after. I did manage to get revenge for them by knocking out that T46, but I realised that my time on the top of the hill was pretty much over, considering my only backup was the lower tier light tank. And, even though I had gotten a couple of kills by this point and done over 490 damage, which isn't too bad in a lower tier game, I knew, I was pretty heavily outnumbered on the top of this hill. My driver had just been injured. I was on less than 60 health, so I thought, sod it, I'm getting out of here. Tested out a bit of my brake manoeuvring there, just to impress my buddies who are watching after their tanks had been knocked out. And I did think for a second about sort of staying and fighting that M3 Stuart, but then I remembered how much of a pain in the arse it was fighting him and how tough his armour is for a tier 3 light tank. So I decided to put down some covering fire and get some distance between me and him, while, naturally continuously crashing into as much debris as possible. Now, I want you guys to pay attention to this bit, because because I'm about to perform a barrel roll in a tier 3 light tank, and I know how that sounds, but just watch. But how? How did I do that? It's just absolutely incredible. And then yeah, I get pretty easily killed by this Sturv light tank, but just for that one moment of me performing a barrel roll in a tier 3 light tank that weighs over 8 tons, it was all worth it. It was all absolutely worth it. And I hope you guys enjoyed that last replay as much as I did, and this video in general, as much as I did playing it, and making it, and playing the matches that were involved in it. And I hope you guys have better matches in these tanks than I did, and have as much, if not more fun than I did in these tanks featured in this video. Now, I'm probably going to call this series Misadventures of World of Tanks with Gitbag the Great, or Misadventures in World of Tanks with Gitbag the Great. And the other series that I'm going to do on World of Tanks, where it's, you know, people sending in their replays to me, I'll probably call it something else, like the best and the worst of World of Tanks.
Now, if you guys did like this video, I would really appreciate if you left a like, share and subscribe. That is up to you guys, of course, as well, because I don't want to force anyone to do anything they wouldn't want to. And if you're interested in any of my other online activities, I'm going to be leaving the links to my Instagram, my Blogspot, my Twitter, and my other YouTube channels down below. On one of my other YouTube channels, I don't do a lot. I very rarely upload on it, but I do occasionally upload things like cooking videos and also talking videos where I discuss current topics. And then on my other channel, I'm going to put in the video description below, I do all sorts of bits and bobs like comedy videos and reviews of alcohol products and food reviews and that sort of thing, as well as the odd cooking video on there as well. And yeah, if you also have any future suggestions for future episodes of Misadventures on World of Tanks with Gitbag the Great, or you have any replays you want to send to me, leave your suggestions and links to your replays in the comments section below, as well as any other suggestions for video games or other video game series, be it one-off videos or playthrough series you might want to see me do in the future, again, in the comments section below. And I'll have a look, see what I can do. Can't promise anything, but I'll try my best. And so, until next time, I've been Gitbag the Great. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video as much as I have had making it, or at least, you know, found it semi, you know, quasi-informative, let's just say that at least. And until next time, I have been Gitbag the Great. Stay safe, have fun with whatever you're doing, don't do anything I wouldn't do, wash your damn hands, take care of your loved ones, and I'll see you guys next time on the battlefield. Bye-bye for now.